All right, so step 2, further divide your major points into smaller units and summarize them with a sentence or a phrase. So now we take one step below. Remember, we said that these were the main or major points, right? So now we're at the A level. We'll just say A and B, because you gotta, if you have an A, you gotta have a B. And this could be verse 1, and this could be verses 2 and 3. All right, let me switch it back over here. Yeah, so now we're at a lower level. So we're at A and B. You got A1, or I should say A verse 1, B verses 2 and 3. Okay, but remember, I'm covering all of the verses. You can't leave any verses out. And so A and B would be what we call subpoints. And at the A and B level, you don't have to have one complete sentence, past tense, third person. You can use, a phrase to capture the idea. All right. Here, it's not mandatory that you use complete sentences. And of course, you want to assign a capital letter to each smaller unit. And these are called minor points. Minor points. That's what these are. Minor points. That's what those are.
So it's just kind of basically a key word that would maybe bring to memory what you have to say.
Yeah, and yeah, typically I wouldn't put just one word there. I would put like a phrase,
Okay.
But in that phrase, it'll be a key word that would, remind me of everything else that's in there. But I would not just put one word. I'd put a phrase, Okay. Again, you want to make sure that you address all of the verses at the minor points level, just like you did at the major points level. You may continue to break it down even further. So let's say if I had A and B here, let's say that was 4, and this was 5 and 6. I can break this down to 1, that could be verse 5, and 2, and that could be verse 6. All right? So you can break it down even further. So this is what that would look like. So you can see the main points, the minor points, and the subpoints. Not leaving out any verses. You got to cover every single verse. So now you write a summary statement in one complete sentence, past tense, third person, using your own words. We call this the exegetical proposition. So, number 2, you write your summary statement. AKA exegetical proposition. All right? Yes. So that's how you move up. So first you did the body. Now you do your summary statement. All right? So you're moving up the ladder, so to speak. You're starting from the ground and building up. And the summary statement, remember, it's what you've been practicing from day one. One complete sentence, past tense, third person. All right? Now, what you have to remember is within each one of these sections, let's just say 1, 2, and 3, they have to tree up to this main or major point. 4, I should say 4, 5, and 6 down here, and then broken down even further, they all have to tree up to this main area up here. All right, so that's the key, is that each one of these tree up to, so within here, A and B will tree up to the main point. A and B and 1 and 2 will tree up to this main point in there. So you got to remember that they're treeing up, if you will. So let's just say if I talked about, let's just say at 1 Roman numeral, and I'll just put it off to the side, I talked about a worship. Then, in verse, let's just say 1, 2, 3. And let's just say we had an A, we had a B, and we had a C. And so I said something like, I'm looking at the passage and it says, Paul wrote about worship, okay? Or Paul wrote about worshiping God. And he talked about, and I can list various types of worship. So the A might be false worship. B might be vain worship. And C might be true worship. See how that works? But they all tree up to be what? Worship, exactly. All right, so that's how you break it down, that they all tree up to the same concept. So within each one of those main or major points, you have them treeing up to that main or major point. The minor points, the subpoints tree up to the main point. All of the main points tree up to the summary statement. The summary statement is covering all of this. So next, you give the outline a title that is instructional. A title. So now we have to come up with a title.
Can you give me a summary statement? Let's say we're still on worship, maybe a summary statement for that.
Yeah, you could say Paul wrote about worshiping God to the Ephesians.
Okay.
All right, that would be a simple summary statement.
Okay.
Right. So that step would be step 3. That's the last step. So we start out with the body, move to the summary statement, and then end up with the title. The title should highlight the exegetical proposition of the pericope, which is designed to help you move to the theological outline. And don't worry about that, but because we're working with the exegetical outline. But here's the key: is that the summary statement got to tree up to the title as well. So this title needs to cover everything in this outline. So if we were outlining this passage and it was about worship, what needs to go into the title? Yeah, something about worship. You can't leave out worship if, that's what the text was dealing with. You can't leave it out. And so, again, now this is real important. Note that you want to review your outline several times along with the target passage to ensure outline completeness and accuracy. You want to make sure that you do that. So you want to go back over everything that you put together. You want to make the necessary adjustments in your review if you need to. You also want to change major or minor points in wording and or groupings as necessary. And you want to make sure that your outline covers all of the verses in the order in which you found them. You don't want to take them out of order. So, so now the reason why so if you notice, I started in which section first? Yeah, the whole thing is the outline, but which part of the outline did I start? The body. Thank you very much. I started with the body. I didn't start with the title. See, too many people start with the title. Absolutely. Notice I started with the body first, then the summary statement, and lastly, I did the title. So you do it that way so that you have the material dictate everything from the material that you're working with, as opposed to imposing upon the material what your thought is. So this is the inductive method as opposed to the deductive method, where you're going to start out with an idea and press everything towards that idea. All right. And so you're allowing the Bible to interpret itself in this order by starting with the body, letting the text tell you what it's all about in your outline, then summarizing it in your summary statement, and then lastly putting an instructional title on it. You'll have fewer what I would call throwaway work if you do it that way. I recall when I first started doing these, man, I would get what I would call a message from God straight off the heavenly presses. And it would be this title that I had in my brain. And I would rush to sit down and put the title on this passage of scripture. I just knew that I was about to teach the greatest lesson or preach the greatest sermon with that outline. And only to find out that as I began to work on the body had nothing to do with the title that I had put on the top of that page. And so, of course, ego bruised, sad, cast down, downtrodden. I had to throw away the outline. I kept the title just in case one day I had to use it. So it wasn't a complete loss, but I had to rework the outline so that it would fit the passage of scripture and not my thought on what I, wanted to make the scripture say. And so I learned the hard way. Start from the bottom, allow the scriptures to tell you what it's about, and then write your summary statement, and then write your title. All right. So you work your way up, and that's what we call the inductive method. So remember, outlining is in the eye of the beholder. You must have at least 2 Roman numerals. And then, of course, you take scripture as you find it, in the order in which you find it. Now, so usually I do the little exercise with the list, and I have you guys group them in. I won't do it tonight. But if you notice the list of things, you can see the various groupings, and I have the students to take them in order. You can't take them out of order. And you put some Roman numerals on the grouping. So some students will say paper and pen, and a book can be things that you use at school. Other people would say paper and pen would be office supplies, book, newspaper, money, all involving paper products, things like that. So they would group them like that. Then I give this other list. Same items, but in different order. And what always happens, is that second list, they group differently. And so even though you have the same things on the same list, they're not in the same order. And so you have different Roman numerals. And the point that I'm trying to make here is simply this, is that anytime you take scripture out of order, you run the risk of changing the meaning that God is trying to give to his people. And so you see that happen before your very eyes when you begin to rearrange the list. Okay? And so keep that in mind. That's why you want to take scripture in the order in which you find it. So again, three basic items to remember. Outlining is in the eye of the beholder. As long as you have logical reasons why you grouped them the way you grouped them and you didn't take them out of order. Number two, you have at least 2 or more Roman numerals on your outline. And then 3, you must take scripture in the order in which you find it. Any questions so far? Good. Here's some helpful tips. While it is not mandatory to strictly follow the order set above, it is advisory. And I just told you why it's advisory. You'll have less throwaway work if you do it the way I shared with you. Otherwise, you'll find that you'll have to redo a lot of things if you start from the top and work your way down. Take the text as you find it. Don't try to rearrange it, as this could cause a change in the meaning. Real important that you remember that.